life management is skill.
Yeah.
And money management is skill.
True.
Unfortunately, we think these are some of the things that we do naturally. But that is skill.
You touched on a common scenario in our homes and marriages. My money is my money, but his money is
Our money.
Do you feel like that has been an effective approach, and maybe how has that impacted marriages today?
I've interfaced. I've really bumped into those arrangements. The challenge is most of the time they don't progress.
And then you also mentioned women, investing by themselves. Where do you think that comes from?
How we have been oriented to believe that men, husbands, are the ones that have the sole responsibility to provide for the family.
Hello and welcome to Reality Check. If you have always been part of this family, welcome back. If you are new here, please consider subscribing to this channel. You will notice that we have rebranded. I wish we had a drum roll to Reality Check. Same content, but bigger, better, brighter, more engaging, and more diverse. My name is Rachel Mwine. I'm going to be your host together with our tried and tested mental health expert and advocate, Evas Kansime Atwine, who is also an inaugural, by the way. So if you're looking for twins like me, you might want to say a little prayer. Hopefully the blessing will come your way. Evas is the founder of International Center for Mental Health and Family Life. And so we're going to be discussing a lot of conversations around mental health, family life, parenting, workplace stress, relationships, and all of that. So welcome to the show, Evas.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to be doing this with you.
Thank you.
I know that in the past you've been having conversations sometimes by yourself and having guest speakers on the channel. But because of the rebrand and because we've been rethinking this, we're going to be having a banter between the two of us.
Thank you.
And occasionally we'll bring in some people from the show. So today our conversation is centered around finances in marriage. That's a big one, right?
It is. It is.
It's a big one. And I want to start because, of course, you interact with a lot of married couples. I want us to start from what are some of the financial scenarios that you have encountered as you have journeyed with married couples? So the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Thank you, Rachel. And I'm really happy to be hosted by you. What an exciting time. Okay, so marriage and finances. So many things we encounter in our day-to-day work. I'm a therapist, marriage therapist to be specific. And so I interact with so many couples and so many marriages. Talking about finances, so many things happening. Number one, can I start with the ladies and finances?
Yes.
I think there is a crisis. Ladies managing finances alone, or they are looking at their finances, some of them, and they don't, I always say, unmarried finances.
The finances, when they never got married.
They never got married. And so there is that challenge, and because of that, some wives investing alone and in hiding their investments. But then we also have men. Men are also affected. They are confused, especially men are struggling with if they don't have as much finances as their wives. That's something that is also, it's happening. But then also, secondly, some who don't have finances.
Yes.
So there are those that probably not earning. That's another problem. And then, of course, managing family finances generally. Yes. So I think those four. Yeah. So those are some of the challenges we are having. So you find that finances, instead of being a blessing, they are actually a source of conflict and challenges and even breakup.
Yeah.
So
When you speak about managing finances, I remember having a conversation with someone who talked about money personalities. I think that's another thing that we come into marriage with, because there are people who are more they spend more as opposed to saving. And then there are those who they hoard the money. They make money and they want to just keep it on the side and just be happy that there's money on their account. And yet they're not really progressing or, advancing their families. And so you find that when those two people meet, the one who spends and the one who is holding, there's bound to be
conflict.
Yeah, conflict. And then you also mentioned women, investing by themselves. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, so this comes from very far. Some of it comes from the beliefs that we have held. I'm sure you've heard the saying. I mean, women love this. They say "esente omukazi, yechikazi."
Yes.
Yeah. So esente yechikazi, and how we have been oriented to believe that men, husbands, are the ones that have the sole responsibility to provide for the family. Yes. So I always say that some women are really stuck with their money because they've come with this belief that that it's only a husband's money that is supposed to be spent on
the
home. But then they are earning. So the question is, I always ask, so what is your money supposed to do?
Yes.
So it becomes a problem. So some of them, it's that long-held belief that it's the husband's money. But then also, it also comes from lack of trust. Yeah, so it speaks to lack of trust because, again, I've always advised my brothers that when there is insecurity, the wife doesn't just hoard their money or hide it. They also plan for the husband's money.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Because then if they are not, so if they, for instance, suspect that the husband has other relationships, they know that they are spending on those relationships. And so there is a natural struggle to want to plan for that money. Because then, as you hide. Yeah, so usually it's it comes from that place of lack of togetherness. People are not working. There's lack of teamwork, and so someone has to,
to keep money aside. Is fear a factor? I think, of course, interacting with a lot of women, and even the whole notion of sente chikazi is just in case something happens, just in case this man dies before you, just in case he cheats on you and has another family. And so because of fear, I say to myself, I don't know what's lying ahead, or I don't know this man well enough to place all my bets on him. Therefore, I'm going to put money aside.
Absolutely. So it's, as I mentioned earlier, insecurity, what you're calling fear. But I'd like to mention that, to remind viewers that marriage is the biggest risk that we will ever make.
Yeah.
And all investment is risky. But marriage is a big risk because you don't just give your money, you give your life.
True.
And so, yes, so in every risk, there's fear, there is uncertainty. And so so some people come in with that fear, they say, oh, supposing this happens. However, it's unhealthy. It's very unhealthy because then you're working towards breaking and not building division and not togetherness. Yeah. And so it's as I mentioned earlier, some people, it's because of the behavior that is happening in the relationships or how they are running their relationships, whether there is more teamwork, whether someone is secure. And of course, when I say in any risk, you need security.
True.
So when there is insecurity perpetuated by one of you, then it becomes a problem. And I don't want to come off like insecurities only on the side of men as perpetrators. It can also come from women. From the women. So this is real. It's really happening.
Yeah.
And so, yes, so that fear. But can I pick on something you mentioned?
Yes.
If someone dies, I've always said that sometimes women behave like we have a contract, an arrangement with God that this man is going fast.
Yeah.
And it's very sad. And so you say, supposing he died. Now, that affects the working together, because you see, when we get married, everything should get married.
True.
Now, our security, our happiness, our satisfaction in marriage is dependent on the extent to which all the aspects are married.
Yes.
So if finances are not married and you're just, you're justifying fear and taking, breaking rather than coming together, then it's a problem. You can't be happy.
Yeah.
And so you're going to invest a lot of emotional energy hiding and protecting. And some cases have been really, really bloody. They've been bad, where some cases, women have invested separately. I heard of a case, real story, a case that invested in apartments and then got the husband to rent.
Wow.
So she was the husband's landlady. And this went on
to him.
Yes. This went on for some time until it had to come out. And so do you want to imagine where the marriage is now?
Yeah.
So it's not a practice that is encouraged. As much as possible, we support and encourage couples to
work together.
Because it's a risk. Trusting someone is a risk, but it's a risk worth taking.
For sure.
So you would rather put the investment in risking to be together than to be alone, because ultimately it's more disadvantageous on the other side.
For sure.
Yeah.
Let's pivot a little to the men. And you mentioned this as you were beginning to submit. You said something about men being providers.
Yeah.
And we are both believers, so we know that this is actually a God-given role for men to provide for their families.
Right.
Has this role been misunderstood? Did something go wrong along the way? Because our parents' generation, the role was clear that men provided, the women stayed home, to nurture and take care of the home and make sure when he comes back, he finds a safe haven. Where did the lines cross? Because we hear a lot of arguments, and I think that's where the whole, when women say the man is supposed to provide, my money does what I decide that it does. So is there truth to the men having this God-given role, and where has it been misunderstood?
Well, so we talk about the 3 P's of men in marriage as provider, protector, and priest.
Yeah.
The provider, all these roles are related to their overall leadership role as heads of households. And let's go back to the times when it was so neat, very, very clear, because of the times.
Yeah.
At that time, it was very easy, and we can't stop envying those generations. But, and I'm coming to, has the wires...
Have the lines crossed?
Have the lines crossed. Yes, so, yes, so it was very clear because of the economic situation then. So the moms were staying home, doing the reproductive and nurturing role, while their husbands did the hunting, looked for the money, went wherever they had to go to make sure that they provide. It was absolutely clear. But we all know what happened. We all know what happened with the Industrial Revolution, and things changed, and women invaded the workplace, right? And so, and it can only get worse. It can only get worse. So now women are into the work area and they are earning. So both of us
Are earning, yes.
So that's number one. Number two, have the lines crossed? Have we misunderstood? I think that's what I wanted. Have we misunderstood the whole concept of provision? I would say yes. Because this concept of provision has been misunderstood by both men and women.
Women, yes.
And so they have narrowed it to only providing finances. But that's not what it is. The role of provision is bigger. It's actually providing vision
Yes.
for the family, because this is an institution. Every institution has to have a vision. And so as a leader of an institution, it's very important for the man in marriage, in a family, to have a sense of where this is going. What kind of family do you want to have? Some of them say, I want a Christian family, but how does it look like? And how are you directing everyone towards that kind of vision, right? So the provision of vision.
Yeah.
Number two, overall leadership, provision of leadership. Now, again, we know the conversations that are happening these days, but I want to say to both men and women listening in that everywhere a wife is, there is an invisible definition or that cover of the husband.
Yes.
And so any normal wife really expects that kind of leadership.
For sure.
And it's just natural. I always say we have to respect what nature has already given us, but we know this is divine, you know. So men occupy that leadership role, and unfortunately now this is being challenged, but that leadership is important. It's important. Soon we'll be talking about parenting. When a family that has a dad, it's different.
Yeah.
It's different. There is that authority that is there. So provision of leadership and authority is important. Finances, of course, care.
Yeah.
It's actually broadly care. And so that care comes in with the finances.
True.
Now, but it doesn't mean that it's purely finances or he's the only one. But you see, when you have leadership, then even you're providing, it's governance. You're governing over every resource in the family and stewarding this. And so whether the finances are coming through your hands alone or both hands, if there is secure leadership and governance, then it shouldn't be a problem. Because you see, every institution has a leadership structure. So when this structure is secure and trusted, then we shouldn't be talking about my money, your money.
Yes.
Because this is an institution. Secondly, when we look at let me use an example of the country. Our president, he doesn't govern this country with his own resources. No. We have donor funds, we have taxes, we have all this, and then he provides, there is a structure. It all comes together to propel
the country.
So it's the same thing. This is a mini government. And so the man being on top, if the finances are coming in, then they are provided for. So it's irrespective. So having said that, to answer your question, is yes, the leadership, the provision aspect has been misunderstood. And so that's why I told you that both men and women are confused. Now women say, oh, this is my money. But, you know, the last time I checked when we were doing vows, you said everything all I have, I give to you. And so we are coming in to build. That's why marriage or family is a building project. So you can't come into this building project and then you're taking finances somewhere else. So everything should come together.
Yeah, I agree, and I quite like the analogy of the way a government works or the way the country works. I think that it actually makes sense because provision is not just in finances. It's you being able to provide leadership and governance over the family's finances, or the family's vision. Where are we going and how are we getting there? And I think that that's very key. You touched on a common scenario in our homes and marriages. My money is my money, but his money is our money. And there are people who swear by it. Like for me, it has worked for me. And so I want to ask, do you feel like that has been an effective approach? And maybe how has that impacted marriages today?
My money is my money, and your money is our money. So you see, marriage is about oneness.
Yeah.
So if, as I mentioned earlier, the extent of your happiness and life satisfaction depends on how all these aspects are married
Together, yes.
how they come together. So if certain parts of your life are not married, it doesn't therefore surprise you that we are having all the confusion, right? Because then if his money is family money, and by the way, this is a big
issue. Very big.
It's a big issue, and men are frustrated. I'll tell you, most men are frustrated by this because what does it communicate? It communicates selfishness.
Oh yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
It communicates selfishness, self-centeredness, but also lack of preparedness for partnership.
Yes.
Right? Because again, marriage is partnership. So just imagine we come into a partnership and then we are pooling resources, and then you say, you know me, I want
your money.
Yes. And when we make profit,
I want to benefit.
I want to benefit 100%, but then I don't want to put in anything. Which partnership works that way?
Yeah.
So the lack of trust, selfishness, self-centeredness, and you can never be together.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you, I've interfaced. I've really bumped into those arrangements. The challenge is most of the time they don't progress. They don't progress. Because you're hiding. So you may progress as an individual, but the family gets affected because resources are not coming together. You're not planning together. It affects teamwork. It affects. You see, when we are managing these things, it also builds our character.
That's true.
Yeah? We build trust. We build teamwork. We build joint planning.
Yes.
We are able to put
thoughts and ideas
together. And remember, where your treasure is, there goes your heart. So if your treasure is somewhere else, then your heart is somewhere else.
True.
So you find that then you can't be together. So those families have a challenge. I'll give you an example. I think I've ever met a family where they're both driving these big cars, latest phones, but the children have no school fees.
How?
They're not working together. You see, something that brings you together gets affected.
Yeah.
It gets affected. You see, you're both focusing on individual. Yeah?
But the kids.
So what is marriage about? You is the ring and you sleep in the same house and all that. The prestige and you go to the misses and but that different intricate aspects around your family, they get affected. Joint investment gets affected. Some of the basic things about children. They get affected. So there's a big loss, very big loss when people are not working together. When finances are here and there, you're not planning together. You're not committing your intellectual resources to this. So you find that you're scattered.
Yeah. Evas, I do know that there are homes where, for example, the man prides in providing for his family solely, and he is comfortable doing it, and perhaps does not need the input of his wife. What are your thoughts on that? Because sometimes we talk a lot about women being the ones who hold back money. And personally, I feel like if your husband says, I'm going to take care of the home, I don't need your money, wouldn't that be a great scenario?
Well, I'm not so sure. Either way, it's not great.
Yeah.
Because, again, you see, behavior is informed by intentions. Where is this coming from?
Where is it coming from?
Which spirit is promoting this? Is he struggling? Because if you're both in this partnership and you say, I'm going to do it alone, where are you coming from? Are you, is it a sign of low self-esteem? And so you're saying the only way to magnify myself and show that I'm in charge of my home is only to provide with my resources and I don't need yours. Because what does that mean? What does that mean? And just imagine in this situation, the wife is also earning, they have money here, and the guy is saying, I don't need your money. What does it mean? What does it communicate? It communicates, you're not part of my team. You know, this is a one-man team, and I don't need you. It communicates rejection. It communicates, so many things. So ultimately, there's no partnership. And I always say that until we view marriage as a partnership, then we are very far from achieving what we want to achieve.
Yeah.
Because this is a partnership. So when we come together, we are sharing everything. We've gone in to build this joint project. And so if one of you says, I don't need you here, then it affects the partnership and teamwork.
Yeah. So I know that there are people who are watching who are either intending to get married or are married and would like some insight into how they can become one when it comes to finances, or how they can enjoy that fulfillment when it comes to finances in their marriage. Maybe you could speak first to the ones who are intending to get married, because I know that there are conversations that they need to have with their significant other, and then speak to those who are married, and perhaps there's some tension or friction where finances are concerned. What would you advise them to do?
Okay, so I would go back to what I said earlier about risk.
Yes.
I've seen investment experts talk about the bigger the risk, the bigger the
reward.
The reward.
Yeah.
And just to comfort people that it's going to feel like a big risk, but it's worth taking. So if you are planning to get married, it's a mindset. All these things is mindset. And so you have a mindset of partnership. You have a mindset of it's worth it. You know that it's worth the investment. Getting ready to bring resources together. You see? So, as a marriage therapist, I'll tell you that when we have just gotten married, the process of being one takes long.
Takes a while.
It takes a while. Actually, I think we do this up to the end.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, but it's worth it. So go in knowing that the risk of putting money into the family is more rewarding than the risk of
putting money
of managing it aside, on the side, because here you're going to need a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Mental effort, a lot of emotional, but also, should it get known, it's very damaging.
Yeah.
So right from the start, what we call determining the end from the beginning, it's very important to know that when you invest here, it can seem risky, turbulent in the first years of marriage, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
You would rather focus here. Yeah. Going here, it may seem
rewarding
in the beginning, but it holds horrible risks and consequences should it come out. So you can start now and
make things right.
Make things right. Declare your resources, and you can do it slowly. If you have, you don't just come here and say boom. If you can, fantastic.
Yes.
But it's not very easy. So you can just try slowly. I mean, in my work, I've seen, and this is the advice I give, it just builds you. It builds you. So it's more than money. It just builds connection. It builds trust. It builds faithfulness. So it's very, very important that then you can begin to work towards being one. And it's very rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know people who will tell you, Evas, I want to first know that I can trust this man. And yet what I hear you saying is you build the trust.
Build it.
As you go along, as you declare that apartment block that you have and say, oh, by the way, I put up this apartment. That's huge. I don't know how you would react.
Yes.
Or maybe I put aside savings. And I think that there's a place for putting aside money as a woman or as a man for your family. But I think what you're saying is declare it. It should not be a secret.
Yeah.
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 That you're putting aside money because, women are known to put aside money for rainy days. Put aside the money, but it's not money that you're putting aside for your secret investment.
That's right.
You're putting it aside for the good of the family.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And openness. I know that I think you mentioned how sometimes when you want to be honest with your significant other or your spouse, there's the risk of either being taken advantage of or the risk of, either he will divert the money or maybe not be honest with you. But what I hear you saying again is risk reward. The bigger the risk, the greater the reward.
The reward.
And you can never know what seems like is going to hurt you might actually be of benefit to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Sure. I like that you mentioned something about if you're worried, you don't trust your partner. By the way, that's real. And it just reminds me of the question you asked earlier, why some partners hide money. For instance, if their partner, and in this case, can I use the husband? If the husband is perceived to be immature, not really taking responsibility, and maybe it can go both sides. Even the wife, if they are immature, all they do is to spend, and they don't consider long-term plans. It can be risky. That's where some people decide to hide money. However, I would advise that you deal with that issue rather than hide the money. Yeah. And I know it's harder for a woman, a wife, to be maybe open and confronting the husband, and ask about, because there's some men we talk about who probably don't know how to manage success.
That's true. That is very true.
Yeah. So when they get a little salary increment, they go through the window, and and so it gets quite challenging. And so in that case, a partner gets weary. They don't know whether they should really declare finances to this person that doesn't seem responsible enough. And so my advice is, this requires a lot of wisdom. And again, my advice is, please deal with that issue.
Yes.
Rather than be the reason to hide finances forever. Maybe in the short term, you're saying, we can't do this because this is happening. Make sure that you deal with an issue.
The end goal is oneness.
Yes.
Yeah, I really, really like that. And I think many times, and I will speak for myself, when you're getting into marriage, you don't quite understand the breadth of what marriage entails, of what being in a relationship, in a partnership with someone entails. And many of us are learning on the job, if we are being honest. We're learning on the job. And, getting back to what you said on a man providing leadership and governance and stewardship and all of that for the entire family, the family as a unit. I think just having that understanding, even as someone who is planning to get married, is very, very important.
Sure.
So you don't go in single single-minded that the man is supposed to provide, he's supposed to give me money,
Right.
you know, and if you don't give me money, then you are not being a good husband.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you're taking away anything from the show today, I think the goal is oneness.
Oneness.
Do you have any parting shots, anything last minute that you want to say to someone that might be watching and maybe is having challenges where finances are concerned? Maybe you could even speak to some tools, things along the lines of budgeting and maybe having a financial advisor for those who can afford it.
Sure.
But just being able to steward and manage money better. I also feel like if you can't manage money as an individual, it's going to be tougher in a partnership.
Absolutely. You see, again, I have mentioned before that life management is skill.
Yeah.
And money management is skill.
True.
Unfortunately, we think these are some of the things that we do naturally. But that is skill. And if it requires, I work with a financial coach, a coach in personal financial management.
Wow.
That's someone to talk to. That's very, very important. But away from that, back home, where we have to manage things alone, financial discipline is a skill. And in any marriage, as you started, you'll have some who are spenders, who don't have a hard time spending money. But then you also have those who are really, really careful. They might not be stingy, but they're very careful about finances. So you always have a more disciplined person
And a less disciplined one.
My advice is, if you're more disciplined, try to teach your partner.
Yeah.
And you who is being taught, please learn. Because you see, marriage
Yeah.
is a learning platform.
Yeah.
So some of these things, up till the time we get married, we've been single.
Doing things by ourselves.
Doing things by ourselves, planning alone, thinking alone, managing your finances, spending any way you want. But now you're together. And so once you know that you're together, then you have to know that this is money in a partnership. You see? So my advice or my parting shot is that let's have that mindset of partnership. Very, very important. Secondly, as we mentioned, both men and women are struggling.
Yeah.
I just want to speak to my brothers and say, it's okay for your wife to earn more. You know?
It's okay.
It's okay for your wife to earn more.
Yeah.
And the world that we are in now, it can only get worse or get better. And so it is okay. It's okay. Again, you see, this is a mindset issue. And these are some of the beliefs that we have held, that it has to be me. And so when the wife is earning more, just make sure you provide the leadership for this family and the stewardship.
If she will let him provide leadership.
Well, that's another conversation. That's another conversation. And for the wives, please respect that leadership.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because once both parties have a mindset of partnership, you're going to respect this leadership.
True.
Right? And so we always say, so who starts? Both of you start. Respect that. Take the risk. Already.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I want to mention. And wives, this money is for the partnership. It's not Sente H Kazi.
Yes. Yes.
If it is Sente H Kazi, let it be little that you're keeping aside. But ultimately, let your money be a part of this partnership. And if you wish, sharing money is a risk, but it's a risk worth taking.
Absolutely. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And just so you know that in every partnership, sometimes there's equal stake. So everyone brings 100, or rather 50-50, so that we make 100. Sometimes husband brings 70% of his resources. The wife brings 30%. So I know that there might be some people who are watching who think, maybe I don't want to give all my money. I think it's about sitting down and having conversations about what's good for the family, where you're going, and how much money needs to be injected into where you are actually going. So thank you so much, Evas. I think this has been enlightening. If you have any questions, a comment, please feel free to post them in our comment section. Evas is a therapist, a marriage therapist. If you need someone to talk to, you can always reach out. We'll definitely link her contact and location in the description box. Thanks again for watching. Rachel Mwino, your host, and Evas from the International Center for Mental Health and Family Care. Until next time, bye-bye. Bye.